For ages, the galactic warlords had ruled the cosmos, capturing many planets and species with their scrutiny. With their sophisticated technology and brutal strategies, Earth was only a small detour on their campaign. A backwater world inhabited by primitive creatures that are not dangerous, according to reports from their scouts, had portrayed people as weak and dependent on antiquated tools, making them scarcely worth the effort to interact with. According to etiquette, they confront Earth's defenders and invite them to demonstrate their value before inevitable conquest. The results appeared predestined, and the warlords overlooked a crucial component that undermined the inventiveness and tenacity that had propelled humanity's existence for millennia. Although Earth lacked other civilizations' interplanetary weapons, it had a long history of mastering instruments made not far apart. Among these tools, the bow stood as a monument made by both human hands and machinery. Unbeknownst to brute force, precision strategy, and skill power, the greatest champion of the warlord Earth was a hunter, not a soldier with cutting-edge armor or contemporary firearms. Proficiency with the bow went beyond simple weaponry. It was a mysterious superstition. To some, they were a myth, their identities obscured by anonymity. They were a sign of the whispered legend of a hunter whose arrows could split raindrops in midair. In contrast to the mass-produced weapons of modern warfare, humanity's will to persevere in the face of adversity, their proficiency was the outcome of a basic yet painstakingly built set of tools, with each arrow tailored for optimal accuracy, lifetime of practice, perfecting each movement until it came naturally with each bowstring draw. Release was a flawless act. When the planet heard the warlord's challenge, the bow came forward not for glory nor recognition, but because they were aware of the risks involved was a struggle of will rather than power or technology, and the warlords made fun of the simplicity of the bow, considering it a remnant from a bygone era, which they found absurd. That their sophisticated defenses could be defeated by such a crude weapon, but their conceit prevented them from seeing the truth. In actuality, the bow was more than just a weapon. It was a physical and mental extension of the Bowmaster. It took perseverance, concentration, and a knowledge of physics that no machine could duplicate. It necessitated reading the setting, wind speed, trajectory distance, and real-time adaptation. Were abilities that the warlords who relied on mechanical processes and forecasting algorithms were unable to understand although they were predictable due to their technology. The Bowmaster's flexibility made each shot despite their technology, the warlords were unable to foresee the superiority of accuracy over brute force in their premeditated strike. Formidable had drawbacks. It depended on computations, reasoning, and patterns that could be upset by uncertainty. The Bowmaster's arrows weren't thrown randomly. Instead, they were fired with the intention of taking advantage of flaws that not even the warlords were aware existed. Each arrow struck would provide a lesson about the importance of mastering machinery and what really sets the Bowmaster. Their craft's underlying idea for the warlords' conflict was distinct: dominance. A display of power intended to smash resistance for the Bowmaster, it was about striking a balance and realizing that true strength stemmed from accuracy and self-control rather than from brute force. This idea was expressed in the simplicity of the bow, which commanded respect for the Duc Abtier, one of the first blades in the Army of the Republic. It wasn't about volume in the process for the amount of work needed to attain mastery. However, the warlord's conceit is not about annihilation, but rather about purpose. Anna had misjudged what humanity stood for. The BM was more than just a talented person. They were a product. Every pull of the bowstring held the weight of Earth's legacy of tenacity. For the innumerable generations who had persevered in the face of overwhelming odds, this was not merely a battle of weaponry, but also a confrontation of ideologies. The bow showed the silent strength of expertise, whereas the warlords believed in using fear to dominate. As the challenge progressed, the Bowmaster's actions were more powerful than words. Each shot was a handful of evidence of the capacity for human creativity that the warlords were used to surpassing. their adversaries were unable to anticipate or oppose this sudden force. When faced with an opponent who fought with a precision they could not match, their advanced shields and targeting systems failed. Reproduce in their arrogance, they had failed to recognize the most basic reality of battle technology, which is just as efficient because the wielder's mastery of the bow was the result of constant work and dedication rather than chance. Moreover, it served as a reminder that despite the existence of advanced civilizations in the universe, there was still space for the capacity of the individual to master a skill that needed both mental clarity and physical strength. The bow was a tool that turned weakness into strength, and a representation of humanity's refusal to be limited by its constraints. The warlords ultimately had to reconsider how they saw Earth, which they had previously written off as a monopoly. The archaic planet turned out to be a source of unmatched resourcefulness, and the Bowmaster's victory was more than only a triumph for a single person, but also an example of humanity's enduring spirit, serving as a reminder that even despite overwhelming obstacles, there is strength in mastery, simplicity, and quality. The rise of the Bowmaster was founded on discipline and an unwavering commitment to the highest levels of combat sports. From a young age, they were drawn to the bow in their quest for mastery, not as only a hunting or sporting tool, but one that requires accuracy and dexterity. The bow, in contrast to other weapons, required a delicate balance between mental and physical strength. Each shot was a deliberate act. Combining a keen grasp of physics with muscle memory, the Bowmaster never focused on the weapon itself, but the technical proficiency that made it an extension of their will after years of commitment shaped the Bowmasters. Instruction was not limited to set procedures for their art. It required flexibility during the period of continuously shifting circumstances, and they practiced in settings where wind, unpredictably shifting patterns necessitated alterations in aim and timing. Their capacity to predict movement and real-time trajectory adjustments became instinctive as a result of this experience. Not simply accuracy, but also the composure needed to perform well under duress in circumstances where hesitation meant perfection. Instead, the BM's steady hand and laser-like focus were their distinguishing characteristics. Knowing how to draw and release the Bowmaster's study was insufficient to comprehend the transcendent mirror dynamics. Materials making their weapons to meet particular requirements, the selection of wood for the bow, the arrow's weight and balance, and the string's tension were all meticulously evaluated, chosen to maximize efficiency, guaranteeing that the weapon was as dependable as the hands who used it. They stood out for their attention to detail, proving that mastery went beyond talent to include a thorough comprehension of the capacity to innovate within tradition was what really distinguished the Bowmaster, not the tools themselves. The bow is an ancient weapon. By all measures, a weapon turned into a forum for innovative problem-solving when faced with obstacles that required unorthodox answers. They created methods that combined precision and quickness, and flexibility. By being proficient in split-second targeting and rapid-firing techniques, they could interact with several people who had unparalleled deficiencies in their reading comprehension and react to their environment, transforming each shot into a calculated move. These innovations weren't the product of technological advancements, but their unwavering commitment to honing their craft meant that their knowledge was their greatest strength of human potential in a time where automated systems and powerful weapons predominate. Their method demonstrated the lasting need of practice and discipline, which the bow needed to be fully plucked. Thus, there were no quick cuts and no dependence on other mechanisms for success. Relied only on the archer's capacity to perform flawlessly in whatever situation. For the Bowmaster was not a restriction but an invitation to embrace it. It was a philosophy that emphasized independence and a profound sacrifice. Despite their unmatched talent, the Bowum never looked for a connection to their craft, recognition, or glory. They continued to be an unnamed artist committed to their craft. Instead of the honors, their anonymity enhanced their mystique and helped their fame soar. Through whispered stories and word of mouth, people who saw their talents talked about so remarkable that it was almost miraculous. But the Bowmasters disregarded such practices. Some believed that their success can only be attributed to their constant dedication to improving their mastery and their relentless practice. Furthermore, demonstrated a more comprehensive understanding of the nature of power, as the Bowmaster's strength was not about brute force. True power came from knowledge and the capacity to overcome overwhelming numbers. With its simplicity, the bow symbolized the idea that concentrated effort should be applied where it counted most. The corolith bore the colors of the Corswatches. It was a weapon that rewarded talent over carelessness and demanded intention. In their possession, it evolved into an instrument for both survival and purpose, serving as a reminder that mastery might elevate even the most basic instruments to amazing levels. In the Corswatches, the scholars played, their fame grew, they elevated the most basic instruments to amazing levels. In a society that is becoming more and more dependent on automation, Master's story became a symbol of defiance against complacency. Master's great-grandfather, technology's commitment to an antiquated trade, served as a counterpoint, serving as a reminder that advancement did not always imply giving up customs and that genuine innovation frequently resulted from rethinking what was previously understood. Bowmaster's method was timeless, founded on ideas that cut beyond time and cultural boundaries. Their journey was not without opposition. The bow was viewed with suspicion by those who thought it was an antiquated artifact from a different time. However, they realized that the person using the weapon defined its significance by demonstrating what could be accomplished with commitment and expertise. They dispelled skepticism and reshaped ideas about what the bow might accomplish. The foundation of the Master's legacy was not the devastation they inflicted, but rather the accuracy and consideration they performed their skill. At its heart, the tale of the Bowmaster is one of tenacity. Their accomplishments were the consequence of conscious work and an unwavering faith in the value of mastery. They demonstrated that self-imposed constraints are common and that excellence is attainable with concentration and perseverance. The bow's simplicity became a representation of this idea. Reminder that, in the right hands, even the most simple tools can become extremely powerful, like the bow. The timeless significance of human inventiveness was demonstrated by Master's journey, a craft that had been refined over years of experience. As a refutation of the idea that progress could only be achieved through improved technology, it was a tale of the tenacity of tradition and strength in simplicity. The Bowmaster demonstrated that the greatest successes are frequently attained not by coercion or invention, but rather by the unwavering pursuit of progress. The Galactic warlords arrived with complete assurance. Their arrival disembodied the police from the battle, leaving behind the Greymen or their cutters to stare stupidly as the Galactic warlords arrived with complete assurance. Armed with a vast array of sophisticated weapons and mechanized system that made them almost unbeatable in earlier campaigns, they saw fighting as a means of dominance. They believed that by using overwhelming firepower and precision-driven technology, Earth's rudimentary defenses were no match for the powers they possessed. Yet their biggest weakness was not. The warlords' arrogance and technological prowess caused them to undervalue the strength of a single adversary whom the challenge was accepted. The Boam was fought with skill rather than machinery. Flowers symbolized humanity. The warlords' weapons were made to destroy. Strict force resistance was designed to counter foreseeable, large-scale attacks. But it overlooked an odd. The Bowmaster used a combination of accuracy and cunning to defeat an opponent whose tactics went against their automated systems, flexibility, and foresight that their technology was unable to quantify or counter. Their mastery of the bow was the result of commitment and a deep comprehension of their profession, rather than of compensatory advancement. The Bowmaster tackled the task strategically, concentrating on taking advantage of weaknesses in the warlords' protections that they relied primarily on because of their technological dominance, which rendered them predictable. Sensors and aiming systems that adopted unconventional tactics and assumed linear assault patterns. The Bowmaster stirred these systems, causing the warlords to respond in ways for which they were not ready at every turn, thoughtfully transforming the warlords' advantage into a disadvantage. Their dependence on technology became a handicap against an adversary who benefited greatly from flexibility. Accuracy was the cornerstone of the Bilm strategy. Each Bilm had arrows was to intentionally target weaknesses that the warlords had failed to consider. Their shield's ability to sustain the blows, repelling high-energy weapons, was less successful against the Bilm's low-tech but incredibly precise blows. The warlords were taken aback by the unexpected strategy, which called into question their belief that technical dominance translated to the Bowmaster's attacks weren't a torrent of pointless force that led to invincibility. Yet precisely targeted blows, each with a distinct objective, the warlords' reliance on them. They were ill-prepared to handle a warrior who acted beyond their expertise. Their systems, which were designed to withstand predictable attacks, found it difficult to adjust to the bow's fluidity and accuracy. Although the Master's weapons could destroy entire armies, they were unable to defeat a single person who battled with a surgeon's precision. This discrepancy demonstrated how limited technology is, when the Bowmaster's success was largely due to the human element's capacity to develop and adapt in real time. In contrast to the warlords, who relied on pre-programmed tactics, the bowmen relied on their reading comprehension and react to the surroundings. They realized that success was about outthinking the opposition rather than defeating them. This strategy revealed the inflexibility of the warlords' tactics, which for everyone, they lacked the adaptability to deal with an adversary who wouldn't follow. Nevertheless, the Bow used the warlord's confidence against them, transforming every obstacle into a chance. When the warlord's strategy was contrasted with human ingenuity, the conflict turned into a study of the limitations of technology. However, there is now a study of the limitations of technology, based on dominance through superior firepower, was unfit for a conflict requiring ingenuity and accuracy. Their sophisticated technologies, which were intended to eliminate dangers on a massive scale, failed to defeat the Bowmasters. Unorthodox techniques, this disparity showed that even the most sophisticated equipment is only as good as its constructor. The accomplishment of adapting the Bowmaster through subsequent changes was evidence of the skill's lasting worth. The result was a revelation for the warlords, who had undervalued knowledge and reliance on machinery. The possibility of an adversary using superior knowledge of the Bowmaster's triumph rather than superior weapons was a reminder that strength does not lie in conquering an adversary, but rather in revealing their shortcomings and presumptions. The warlords' conviction that their technology was infallible was demonstrated not only in the tools they utilized, but also in how they were used. Its eventual downfall. Demonstrating the timeless strength of human flexibility and resourcefulness, the conflict compelled the Dwellians to rise in resistance. The Dwellians were unable to face the limitations of their strategies, and were therefore exposed to the limitations of their strategies, and were therefore exposed to an adversary who flourished on adaptability and accuracy. The Dwellians' mastery of the bow was an example of how knowledge and talent could defeat even the most sophisticated equipment, an example of the need of flexibility, a trait that no computer could duplicate. In addition to being a triumph for humanity, the Bowmaster's win called into question the warlord's entire ideology of the fight. Marked a turning point in warfare, not because of its size, but rather because it symbolized the Master's victory. Concentration served as a reminder that advancement need not equate to a rejection of tradition. It demonstrated that even in a world where captains were centered around money, even with technology, the human factor had a place, and the Bowmaster's triumph wasn't solely a setback for the ingenuity, discipline, and the values that had guided humanity for millennia were validated by warlords. Since flexibility is the real test of strength, the warlords, despite their immense might, were forced to reevaluate their presumptions about the planet and its inhabitants, expecting a simple conquest, only to be humbled by a ha-ha. The triumph of the Bowmaster, a single person who personified the possibilities of human skill, was more than simply a personal triumph, but also a declaration of the timeless worth of mastery. It served as a reminder that even the most basic instruments, when used with purpose and accuracy, it might lead to greatness. This conflict wasn't just a battle of armaments, but an ideological conflict that demonstrated the superiority of the human spirit over the conceit of technological superiority. And the conflict between the Galactic warlords and the Bowmaster became a turning point in the centuries-long perception of strength and power. Because scientific development was seen as synonymous with power, the warlords personified this idea in their empire, on weapons and systems that eliminated the need for conventional techniques or personal expertise. But the Bowmaster's victory exposed the basic weakness in this viewpoint, which holds that power is not innate in instruments or machinery, but rather in the capacity to employ them deliberately and precisely. The BMM strategy for fighting showed that mastery based on discipline and knowledge had a greater influence than reliance on technology. Their proficiency with the bow was the result of years of commitment, making every move intentional and successful, in contrast to the warlords who the bow relied on flexibility and insight, and their technology did the thinking for them. Differentiation was crucial, since the bow flourished in a setting where the warlords acted within predictable bounds. Uncertainty, transforming each variable into a benefit. The lesson was obvious. The Bowmaster's success was not due to their weapons' intrinsic superiority, but rather to their ability to adapt as much as their strength. Because they were aware of its potential and limitations, they were able to get over challenges that would have confused even the most sophisticated systems. Their triumph required not only talent, but also planning and the capacity to foresee and outmaneuver a rival who depended too much on rigid systems, served as a reminder that expertise combined with adaptability could outperform brute force. The bow in this context came to represent simplicity's victory against the complexity it demanded. No external power sources or sophisticated parts, depending instead on the archer's capacity to regulate every element of its loaded weapons. The bow had an advantage against the warlord's technology. Thanks to this control, despite its advanced technology, it was only as good as the mechanisms that controlled it. The Bowmaster's comprehension of their skill made this simplicity into a strength, demonstrating that complexity is not always necessary for effectiveness. The warlords were humbled by this knowledge, because their kingdom was predicated on the idea that technical skills are useless. Traditional methods are rendered obsolete by advancement. Yet the success of the BMM showed that mastery of, notwithstanding even the most sophisticated innovations, the effectiveness of the bow was not a holdover of the past, but evidence of the lasting importance of talent and accuracy. This insight compelled the warlords to reconsider their presumptions of power, and further, the triumph of the Bowmaster conveyed a more general message about the nature of rivalry and strife, demonstrating that success is not predetermined. The warlords, with their enormous arsenal, failed not only because they lacked resources or tools, but also because they were unable to deploy them efficiently. Because, in contrast, they lacked the flexibility and inventiveness required to address an unforeseen obstacle, the Bowmasters faced the doubts with empathy. The Bowmasters put on all his hard work and perseverance because they welcomed uncertainty and used it to their benefit. This difference highlighted the significance of resourcefulness and resilience in conquering challenges. This encounter also demonstrated the importance of independence, which the Bowmasters saw. Being proficient with a bow was a personal accomplishment attained via hard work and devotion, as opposed to the warlords who relied on technology to make up for their deficiencies. And the Bowmasters' success was solely their optimistic attitude. Their victory was largely due to their independence, which allowed them to adjust and develop in ways that the warlords, limited by their institutions, were unable to. This served as a reminder that real power originates internally, rather than using tools or resources from other sources for humanity. Master's triumph served as motivation and an example of what could be accomplished with tenacity and mastery. It demonstrated that advancement does not always necessitate forsaking tradition, that traditional methods could be useful in a contemporary setting, offering answers to problems that technology couldn't handle. The BOM talent on its own, it was a bridge, not a holdover from the past, between the past and the present, demonstrating the timeless nature of the warlord's discipline and comprehension. Additionally, loss had consequences that went beyond the direct conflict. It compelled a re-examination of the presumptions that underpinned their empire and the strategy they had used to handle conflict, ignoring everything that did not fit with the idea that technology was the ultimate measure of power viewpoint. But the Bowmaster's triumph disproved this idea, demonstrating that power is more than merely a question of equipment, of the capacity to employ them efficiently. This insight marked a sea change in the boundaries of technological possibilities. Above all, the impact of this altercation went beyond the people who were directly involved. It became a narrative of tenacity and inventiveness, serves as a reminder that, despite insurmountable obstacles, simplicity and the triumph of the Bowmaster was not only a personal triumph, but also a declaration of the eternal worth of human potential. It demonstrated that development involves more than just improving technology. It also entails comprehending and improving the tools we currently possess. This viewpoint contested the warlord's ideology's hegemony by offering a different interpretation of power and strength. The Bowmaster's triumph was ultimately, it was more than just a tactical victory. It was a philosophical declaration that questioned the presumptions that had led to the conflict. Lord's conquest of the galaxy showed that human tenacity and adaptation are characteristics that define us, because the quest for mastery is not constrained by the equipment we employ. Rather, they are the cornerstone of development that can conquer even the most difficult obstacles. The Bowmaster's triumph was a reminder that power comes from the hands and thoughts of the person using it, not from the actual tools. The understanding of power and tenacity on Earth and beyond was fundamentally altered by Master's victory. The triumph of humanity symbolized the importance of talent, concentration, and willpower. Undue dependence on outside developments, it served as evidence that even in a technologically driven age, despite overwhelming obstacles, personal mastery and adaptability may still prevail. The lessons were evident. The influence of the Bowmaster's lesson was timeless, as were the lessons of patience, discipline, and tool comprehension. Success went much beyond the actual battle, and the galactic warlords were steadfast in their convictions, were compelled to admit the shortcomings of their strategy, believing that technology was the ultimate source of power. Failure was a sobering reminder that the effectiveness of any instrument, no matter how sophisticated, depended on the people using it. Star Wars: The Force Awakens. This insight rippled through their ranks, causing them to reevaluate their tactics and the arrogance that had led them to conquer so many civilizations. The mastery of the bow came to represent fortitude, not only for people, but also for any species that had endured the warlord's dominance. It demonstrated the value of knowledge over physical might and flexibility over rigid systems, such as the bow. Symbolized the larger idea that even the most basic tools might accomplish. It was simple in design but profound in application. When delivered with accuracy and purpose, this message struck a chord with individuals who had been eclipsed by the warlord's technological dominance, gave hope that mastery and hard work could overcome obstacles that seemed insurmountable. Challenges, this encounter also turned into a pivotal story about human ingenuity. The Bowmaster's triumph was based on internal innovation rather than technological advancement. Limitations, it showed that advancement is not only possible with state-of-the-art instruments but also significantly so. By improving and refining current techniques, the Vandals could demonstrate an even more impressive way to achieve their goals. An old weapon, by all accounts, became a conduit for contemporary. The BBM's inventive usage of this instrument served as a reminder of humanity's origins, while demonstrating the use of conventional techniques in novel and surprising ways for individuals. Additionally, this victory has important ramifications for Earth's connection with the larger galaxy. Dispelled the idea that people were a helpless, unimportant species, putting them on the galactic scene as a force to be reckoned with. The Bowum triumphed became a tale that inspired prudence and respect across boundaries. Among other civilizations, the focus shifted from Earth's lack of weaponry to its resourcefulness and tenacity. People's perceptions of humanity as weak and archaic were challenged by this new narrative, which reframed Earth as the Bowum's legacy extended beyond the planet's ability to perform great feats via pure willpower and ingenuity. It had an instant effect on the warlords and the prestige of humanity throughout the galaxy, and it was a tale that was passed down through the ages.
This legend, which told a story of triumph over all odds, inspired people not just on Earth, but among many other species that perceived a mirror of their own hardships in the BM's triumph. The message was unmistakable. Creativity, discipline, and power exist despite all obstacles. and the Bowmaster's acts of refusing to give up became a global representation of the possibility of victory. As the stories circulated, adversity through skill and endurance questioned preconceived notions about what development is. In prosperity in a world where the development of technology was frequently regarded as the gold standard of civilization, a counterpoint was presented by the Bowmaster's victory, which implied self-mastery and comprehension of basic ideas could compete with and perhaps outperform the most advanced systems. This viewpoint prompted a reconsideration of principles, reminding societies that advancement is not.
It is not only about progressing, but also about preserving and improving the lessons learned from the past. The Bowum narrative also highlighted the value of humility, saying that their triumph did not come from conceit or the conviction that one is superior, but that one is dedicated and always focused on improving. This humility, coupled with the warlord's overconfidence, was sharply contrasted with an unparalleled degree of expertise. The lesson was profound. True strength is calm, methodical, and based on an unwavering foundation of preparation rather than being ostentatious or boisterous. Nonetheless, this message struck a deep chord, offering as a reminder that the biggest successes frequently don't come from outside sources. But due to internal discipline, the world lords were forced to reevaluate the basis of their empire's dependence on overwhelming power, and cutting-edge technology has made them oblivious to the importance of adaptability. And realizing that the Bowmaster's triumph revealed the brittleness of their power based on potentially disrupted by inventiveness and flexibility, it was a moment of realization that forced them to face the shortcomings of their strategy and the possibility of other avenues for gaining power and strength. The Bowmaster's outcome was not one of notoriety or fame. Instead, they stayed anonymous. Was a person whose achievements served as a reminder that the values they stood for were more significant than who they were. It wasn't about the fact that personal mastery and commitment could accomplish what armies and machines couldn't. Individual, but rather about how each person has the capacity to overcome obstacles with hard work and concentration. Their triumph's overarching theme, that power comes not from titles or equipment, but from the capacity to make the most of what one has. The Bowmaster's legacy served as a lighthouse for those who wanted to, challenging the established quo, proving that advancement is not necessarily straight-lined, and that by perfecting their skill, the Bowmaster can discover that the solutions to today's problems frequently lay in the ideas of the past. Transformed a basic weapon into a force that altered ideas of power and advanced their narrative, which is timeless in its teachings, served as a reminder to humanity and the galaxy that strength is determined by one's actions rather than by their possessions.